2023. Additionally, Honorable Speaker, debate will also be undertaken on the motion on the reconstitution of other lapsed committees and ratifications of the agreement for the establishment of the African Finance Corporation. I think the Honorable Speaker read out the list of the bills and have the committees that have lapsed. Honorable Speaker, members will note that there are agreements pending consideration by the House, including the agreements on fisheries subsidies. I therefore urge committees to expedite consideration and also conclude on any other urgent business pending before them. In addition, Honorable Speaker, there are a number of businesses that include motions on committee reports whose notices of motion require to be reintroduced. I call upon all members and chairpersons of committees to urgently give notices of motion to enable processing. Honorable Speaker and honorable members, with regard to the attendance of cabinet secretaries to answer questions from members, I wish to inform the House that arrangements are ongoing and cabinet secretaries are expected to start appearing in plenary from Wednesday, 26th February 2025. Members are encouraged to be present to ask their questions as well as any supplementary questions they may have. Having said that, Honorable Speaker and members will recall that during the last week of January, the National Assembly undertook a retreat of all members of the House to deliberate on various matters of concern. Among the key resolutions made during the retreat was the operationalization of the contributory post-service medical scheme for members of Parliament. As of today, 102 members have signed up for the scheme. The House Business Committee commends the members for their commitment and encourages members to register as well. Finally, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the House Business Committee will convene on Tuesday, 18th February 2025 to schedule business for the rest of the week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I lay.
Thank you, Owen. Honorable Hiker, Lydia Hiker, CBS.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia hii fursa. Na kwanza niseme ni ukweli tuko katika safari ya kwenda kule Addis Ababa, tutaondoka kesho asubuhi. Tunatakia kila laheri kule mbele ya safari, lakini kwa sasa nataka kutoa hii jumbe ya rambirambi kwa hayati Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa mujibu ya kanuni ya 13(1) nasimama kumwomboleza na pia kumsherekea maisha ya mzee Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Aliaga dunia tarehe 7 Februari mwaka huu. Marehemu Mbotela alikuwa mwanahabari tajika ambaye wanahabari wake ulikuwa kielelezo cha ubora, weledi na uadilifu kwa vizazi vingi vya watangazaji wa habari katika kanda ya Afrika Mashariki. Mheshimiwa Spika, tangu akiwa mdogo, marehemu Mambo Mbotela alionyesha shauku kubwa katika nyanja ya utangazaji, ikitambuliwa kwamba mara nyingi angebuni na akishikilia chupa kama kipaza sauti na kuiga kwa shauku wasomaji wa habari na wachambuzi wa michezo na huduma na utangazaji ya Afrika ABC. Mtindo huu ulikuwa dhihirisho ya mapema kwamba marehemu Mambo Mbotela alikuwa na talanta ya utangazaji na kuashiria cha uwezo ya kuwa mtangazaji aliyebobea akakomaa. Mheshimiwa Spika, mnamo mwaka wa 1964 ndoto ya marehemu Mambo Mbotela kujitosa na kubobea katika ulingo wa utangazaji zilianza kutimia. Alipojiunga na shirika la utangazaji la Sauti ya Kenya almaarufu VOK, ambalo sasa linajulikana kama Shirika la Utangazaji la Kenya, KBC. Umaarufu wa marehemu Mambo Mbotela katika fani ya utangazaji ulionekana mara tu alipojiunga na shirika la VOK. Weledi wake na sauti yake ya kipekee vilimpa ushawishi katika nyanja ya utangazaji, ikiwemo matangazo ya matukio ya kihistoria katika taifa la Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, marehemu Mambo Mbotela atakumbukwa kwa ugwiji wake wa kipekee katika lugha ya Kiswahili, ujuzi aliyoutumia ustadi kupitia kipindi chake cha redio cha Kiswahili kilichojulikana kama Je, huu ni ungwana? Kupitia kwa kipindi hicho, marehemu Mambo Mbotela alimulika viongozi na raia kwa matendo yaliyokiuka maadili ya kijamii, kuwakosoa na kuwahitaji wawajibike zaidi. Na zaidi ya hayo, ucheshi na ufahamu wake katika kutangaza mbashara mchezo wa kandanda na sikukuu za kitaifa ulivutia sana wasikilizaji wote hapa nchini na kuimarisha hadhi yake katika utangazaji kama sauti yake ya kitaifa na pia kama shujaa katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Nikimalizia, Mheshimiwa Spika, natoa pole za dhati kwa familia, marafiki na taifa lote nzima kwa ujumla kwa kumpoteza mtangazaji huyu maarufu, Mzee Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Kujitolea kwake katika utumishi wa umma, weledi na uadilifu katika kazi utabaki kuwa mfano bora, sio tu kwa wanahabari bali pia kwa Wakenya kwa ujumla. Tunamwombea apumzike kwa amani, na vile kwa familia tunaendelea kuwapatia pole. Hata kwa viongozi wote pia tunatoa pole. Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Asante sana Haika. Yes, Omboko Milemba.
Yeah, thank you Honorable Speaker. Ingawa wametumia Kiswahili but nitajaribu kutumia Kiingereza. First, let me thank Honorable Haika for eulogizing Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Let me also, on my behalf and the people of Umuahia, send our condolences to the family, relatives, and the people of Leonard Mambo Mbotela, a great person in media who during the years 80s was at his peak. Honorable Speaker, Leonard Mambo Mbotela was an icon in this country, and this statement has come on time. Leonard Mambo is remembered for his time when making sure that Kenyans know the results of football matches, because those days there was no TV and the radios were not with everybody. So we would gather around a radio in a home where one person who may have bought a radio was, and would hear how he was able to announce how the football was going on. Some of his best names were like when he mentioned Controller Murila, Bobby Ogola, Sekatawa of Uganda, Serewangi of Uganda, Peter Tino of Tanzania, and other players who were celebrities during those days, including Zamoyoni Mogela. Secondly, you can never forget Leonard Mambo, because in 1982, when the coup occurred, we woke up in the morning, and now this time Leonard was not doing football, Honorable Speaker. But he had this to say, that serikali yetu iko mikononi mwa jeshi letu na polisi wote wakae kama raia. That's the day when we knew that police can just also be ordered to be raia. We want to celebrate this icon, and may God rest his soul in the best place. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Katana. Okay, yes. Give Katana.
Asante Bwana Spika. Nataka kujiunga na wenzangu kumwomboleza mwandishi shupavu Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Bwana Mbotela alikuwa kiungo muhimu na kielelezo bora kama waandishi wa habari, mimi nikiwa mmoja wao. Bwana Mbotela ameinua vipaji vingi sana vya waandishi na uboreshaji pia wa waandishi katika nchi hii. Bwana Spika, ingekuwa vyema kama watu wote ambao wamechangia mchango mkubwa katika taifa hili, ikiwa ni usanii na pia uandishi, waweze kukumbukwa kabla hawajakufa. Bwana Spika, Leonard Mambo Mbotela alikuwa ni mtangazaji maarufu na pia mwendeshaji vipindi katika redio ambavyo vimeelimisha watu wengi, ikiwa kipindi chake cha Je, huu ni ungwana. Naombea roho yake iweze kulala mahali pema peponi, na pia kuombea familia yake iweze kuwa na subra wakati huu wa maombolezi. Asante Bwana Spika.
Wangare.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Hata mimi nataka kumpa hongera Mheshimiwa Haika Mizigi kwa kuweza kuleta hii habari hapa, habari ya kifo cha mwenda zake Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, unajua ukisoma historia utajua Mambo Mbotela hakuwa tu wa Kenya. Ukiangalia historia yake, babu ya babu yake alikuwa ametekwa nyara kule Malawi, ndio wakajipata wamefika kule Mwambao kule Mombasa, na kwa hivyo ako na mizizi sio tu ya Kenya bali ni ya Afrika mzima. Mheshimiwa Spika, huwezi ukasoma historia ile aya ambayo ni ya majaribio ya mapinduzi ya serikali ya mwaka wa 1982 bila kuhusisha Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Na alipomaliza shule alianza kazi kule Nakuru, alisomea kule Kitui na aliweza kuanza kazi kule Nakuru kama mfanyikazi wa kikundi cha Standard kule Nakuru kabla aende katika Sauti ya Afrika ama VOA. Kwa hivyo ako na historia ambayo ni mzuri, ako na historia ambayo imeenda miaka zaidi ya 50 katika kupasha wa Kenya na kupasha hata dunia mzima na kupasha Afrika ya Mashariki. Kwa hivyo tunamuombea na tunaomba kwa dua kwa Mungu kwamba amlaze mahali pema, na kwa jamaa na marafiki tunawaombea faraja aweze kupumzika kwa amani. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Rachel Nyamai.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii. Pia mimi niweze kumshukuru Mheshimiwa Haika kwa Kiswahili kizuri sana cha Pwani. Ameweza kutukumbusha maisha ya Leonard Mambo Mbotela. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia mimi nataka kujiunga na wenzangu kutakia familia yake katika wakati huu mgumu, Mungu awapatie fadhila. Mheshimiwa Spika, fadhili. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nakumbuka Mambo Mbotela nikiwa mdogo. Wakati huo redio ilikuwa ni moja na kwetu sisi ni wengi sana. Kwa hivyo tulikuwa tunazunguka hiyo redio tukisikiza hicho kipindi chake cha Je, huu ni ungwana. Alikuwa mcheshi, alikuwa anafundisha jamii na alifanya kazi nyingi sana katika nchi ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ningependa kukumbuka maneno ambayo Leonard Mambo Mbotela alisema wakati ule alikuwa amezeeka, amefanya kazi nyingi. Aliuliza kama inawezekana kazi aliyofanya iweze kuhifadhiwa katika museum yetu. Kwa hivyo mimi naweza kuita Mheshimiwa Spika kama mkubwa wetu katika bunge na kupitia kamati yetu ambayo inaangalia mambo ya broadcasting, kama tunaweza kuchukulia jambo hili na tulipatie uzito na tuweze kuhifadhi kazi ambayo alifanya, awe anaweza kusomesha watu wale wengine. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa fursa.
Meja Raso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I join Kenyans, Honorable Naika, and many others to send a tribute and condolence on the demise of a distinguished Kenyan, a legend, a man I think who will live through history of broadcasting and media. Honorable Speaker, Leonard Mambo Botela was a household name. And when we look at our media today, and I think the journey they walked, many of them who lived in abject poverty, many did not know about their dwellings, about their life, but they contributed to Kenya we have today in terms of patriotism, loyalty, in terms of placing Kenya on the map of the world. Honorable Speaker, when Leonard Mambo Botela was in VOK, when he came to announce, or is the one who will be broadcasting the news on that day, it means something serious was coming up. And that is why on 1st August 1982, the coup plotters of that time were able to use Mambo Botela to actually broadcast to Kenyans that there is a coup. So for that reason, I think the demise of people like Mambo Botela tell us something about our country. Is there something that has been written about this man? Are there archives that the Kenyans, the young Kenyans like those ones sitting in the gallery, will they remember such a man when they grow up? And he was an icon, because in the media today, we have a lot of young people who he did the tutelage to what they are today. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, ours is to pray for his soul to rest in eternal peace and for the Almighty God to give solace to his family. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Commissioner Macau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. Same time, allow me to thank the Honorable Ahika Taita Taveta MP for bringing this to the House to enable members pass a word of condolences to the hero of the media houses and the then VOK of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans will remember Leonard Mambo Botela as a man who brought happiness in houses during the then football. Mr. Speaker, Leonard Mambo Botela brought light and happiness by his knowledge of Swahili. His commendation on football made every Kenyan like football. Mr. Speaker, today, the late Leonard Mambo Botela character was even identified by the KDF boys led by Ochuka, who captured him to bring him to VOK so that Kenyans could know that really Kenya was under the then KDF takeover. Mr. Speaker, today I'm also a very unhappy person. When the family of Leonard Mambo Botela told us he is going to be deterred, he's going to be deterred at the Langar Cemetery, Kenyans wondered how. Mr. Speaker, we also learned really it was not a Kenyan descent, of Kenyan descent, but from Malawi. Mr. Speaker, how I wish as a nation we can honor such a man and give him a status that befits a hero of his nature. Mr. Speaker, how I wish Leonard Mambo Botela's funeral could be undertaken and taken care of, the cost and everything, by the Kenya government. Mr. Speaker, it's also important to know that even if the family doesn't have a place to lay him to rest, this nation has always honored heroes. Leonard Mambo Botela must be honored as so. On the same breath, Mr. Speaker, when I walked in, I found some members who are registering to go to Addis Ababa. Mr. Speaker, it's important for Kenyans to know if Raila Odinga is going to AUC, it's not about the broad-based government. It's about Kenya. I wish, Mr. Speaker, because I know you are a generous man, how you can also accord some of us who are not in the broad-based government, you afford us to go to Addis Ababa so that we have...
Order, you are out of order.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
What is going on in Addis Ababa has nothing to do with the death of Leonard Mambo.
Mr. Speaker, I'm talking about heroes.
Yes.
We are celebrating one Amolo Raila Odinga as a hero who is living. And Mr. Speaker, our support to him shows how patriotic we are. Mr. Speaker, you don't have to wait for heroes to die so that we celebrate them. That is why I brought it that way. But however, Mr. Speaker, allow me to join other members who are passing their condolences to the late Leonard Mambo Mbotela. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll end up there on Leonard Mambo. I will invite Kiborek Ruben to also make a statement, then we'll observe a minute silence for both. I hadn't noticed you, but let Kiborek speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to pay tribute to a great man, a former member of Parliament, South Baringo, which is Mogoti and Eldama Ravine currently, Honorable Edward Cherutich Kiptanui. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 259, D2, I rise with a heavy heart to pay tribute to former member of Parliament, Mogoti, South Baringo, which is now Mogoti and Eldama Ravine, Honorable Edward Kiptanui. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Edward Cherutich Kiptanui transitioned from this world on Tuesday, January 28, 2025, after a short illness. We mourn his departure, but also celebrate a life well lived, a life dedicated to service, leadership, and betterment of our nation. Honorable Speaker, born on 15 February 1934 in Baringo, in Kisanana, Baringo, Mogotio, Baringo County, Honorable Kiptanui was the firstborn of the late Assistant Chief Kimulwa Kiptanui and Alai Kimulwa. From an early age, he displayed a thirst for knowledge and determination to uplift those around him. His education journey took him from Kesanana to Tenge Secondary School and later to Kabarnet in Intermediate School, where he laid his foundation for his long dedication to service and leadership. Driven by passion for education, Honorable Kiptanui trained as a teacher at Kijabe Teachers Training College, eventually rising to the position of principal at a meaningful primary school. Even in his role as a teacher, he demonstrated unwavering commitment to community development. This elevated him to elective politics as the county council representative for the Central Rift. Honorable Speaker, his leadership qualities soon led him into national service, and in 1966, he was nominated as Member of Parliament. Though his journey in elective politics faced challenges, he remained resilient, and ultimately winning the larger South Baringo parliamentary seat in 1974. For 15 years, from 1974 to 1988, Honorable Kiptanui served his constituent with integrity and vision. His dedication and hard work earned him the trust of President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, who appointed him Assistant Minister for Water Development from 1979 to 1988. This period is spearheaded numerous empowerment initiatives, championing access to water, to education, water resource, employment, opportunities, and economic development for his people. Mr. Speaker, even after his tenure in Parliament, his service to the nation did not wane. In 1991, he was appointed chairman of the National Water Corporation, as a position he held for a decade. His leadership in this role further reinforced his legacy as a champion of public welfare and sustainable development. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of this House, may I extend our deepest, sincere condolences to the family, friends, and community of Honorable Edward Cherutich Kiptanui. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kiptanui was a great man, and I'm very proud to walk on the shoulders of those giants who came before me in Mogotio and in South Baringo and Baringo at large. He was a great leader to my community, to this nation, and to our great county of Baringo. He served with dedication, with integrity, and with passion. He transformed the life of our people and the life of this nation, and we are immensely proud of him and his legacy that he left behind. We are proud as the people of Baringo, people of Mogotio, and may his soul rest in eternal peace, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for granting me this honor.
Thank you, Kiborek. Sirma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also condole with the family of our late departed Member of Parliament, Edward Cherotich Kiptanui. Kiptanui was a great man. He went through the many political storms within Baringo. Baringo was a hotbed of politics at that time. And Mr. Speaker, I, for one, when I was in Form 4, we decided just to go and register for voter's card and even took an ID in advance because my father believed in Mr. Edward Kiptanui. And I voted for him in 1979. Yes, so I voted for him in 1979 and voted for him in 1984. So I voted for him twice. In the third time, because of political storm, he was removed by the Kanu Mandarins at that time. But what I know is there was no election in 1988 anyway in this country. So this Mulolongo nonsense, which was there at that time, removed Kiptanui from the seat of power. And the people of Mogotio and Eldama Ravine still remember him to date. And on behalf of the members of parliament from Baringo, whom we are jointly together, we have gone to their family, and even the member for Rongai, who also is a neighbor. Mr. Speaker, we need to also give him a heroic send-off as a former member of parliament who served for 4 terms. He came here as a nominated member of parliament after being beaten by Babu Ud in Nakuru North constituency, and then came to Baringo South, where he went for 3 terms straight. And I would say he was popular and he was a man of the people. And at that time, Mr. Speaker, you remember, even you, when you came to this parliament, there was no salary. But he managed because he was a good man and he was endowed a bit. And he helped us in all other places where he could. Made children go to school, build schools, and there was no CDF at that time. So I want to say he's a great man. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll end there on the tributes. Honorable members, I want to close here. We have a lot of business to carry. Yes, Sabina? On Kiptanui?
No, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to give my condolences about Leonard Mambo Botela. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And on the onset, Mr. Speaker, I am an old journalist, and I happen to work with Leonard Mambo Botela as one of our senior fathers in broadcasting, a man who inspired majority of us when we were young people. And I was very proud, Mr. Speaker, when I joined the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation to work closely with him. He was a good mentor. He was a man, Mr. Speaker, who even stood with the government even during the coup, and a man who offered himself. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, majority of these senior people in broadcasting, Mr. Speaker, they end up having a very difficult life, and especially at the old age. Mr. Speaker, I would want to urge the Committee on Communication, and especially Honorable Kiarie, I know he's here. It is important that we look at the talents that we have. We see how we can be able to build the talents. We see how we can be able to take care, especially those old people who are there, who entertained us, who offered themselves. And the salary then at KBC was very little, very, very small. And even looking at the salaries that the current journalists who work in Kenya Broadcasting Corporation are paid. We have the best talents there. We need to focus and put more money in Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. They build young talents, but they end up either being poached by other media houses. And since it is a training ground, I'll urge the Committee on Communication to relook at the perks that are given to the people who are working at Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, and also have a pension scheme, because the money they earn is very little. Majority of them are not even in permanent and pensionable. They are actually called one name, which is called artists, and which they are normally on like a casual basis, and a majority of them have worked even for 20, 30 years, but not on permanent basis. And that means at their old age, they have not saved anything. If you have a pension scheme where they can be able to be supported even by the government, celebrated, and especially even when we are doing the honors, those are the ones who need to get the head of state commendation and recognition, because we know entertainment and the therapy they give in humor, it has actually helped a lot of people. And especially, Mr. Speaker, this time where everybody seems to be upset about nothing and about everything, where there's a lot of things happening within the country and the stress levels are high. These people who work as therapists, who bring humor, who bring happiness to us, who wake up in the morning to inform us what is happening in the country, who sometimes, some of them are comedians, we need to take good care of them because they're also taking good care of our hearts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may Leonard Mambo Botela rest in peace, and I hope the government can have something to support his family. I thank you.
Thank you. We'll end up there on those tributes, honorable members. I also knew Leonard Mambo Botela as an undergraduate student at the University of Nairobi when we used to run a program at VOK known as Books and Bookmen. You read books and you go to the radio to discuss with the rest of Kenyans. We used to run it with Professor Chris Wanjala, the late, Professor Okot Bitek, and a few other professors. In 1982, I represented the coup plotters who overthrew the government of President Moi for 2 hours. And Leonard Mambo Botela was a key witness in the case against Senior Private Ezekiah Ochuka and Senior Private Okumu, who are my clients. And you could feel his patriotism when he represented the country. So for the honor of the late Honorable Kiptanui and Leonard Mambo Botela, shall we be upstanding for a minute silence? May their souls rest in eternal peace. Amen. Thank you. And for you members and leaders like Owen Bayer, this is the moment where you should reflect and see that the country needs a hero's corner to bury people like Leonard Mambo Botela. It is disheartening to hear that we are going to bury Leonard Mambo Botela in Langata Cemetery. Probably his grave will be on top of a grave, knowing how crowded the place is. Next order. Honorable members, I'll direct that before we go to the procedural motions, we dispose of all the bills at first reading stage. So clerk, call out orders 20 to 25 before we come back to order number 8. Yes, Jared Okello, what's the point of order? Give Jared Okello the mic.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. There is an issue that I need your direction on, Honorable Speaker. A matter has always been brought before this House intermittently at various intervals, but the last time that it was brought here, which I believe is 6 months ago, you gave a direction. And this relates to hardship allowance, Honorable Speaker. Now, when you gave that direction, Honorable Speaker, a multi-agency team that was brought in by the government through various agencies undertook a survey across the country particularly on areas that were touched by the agitation for inclusion on hardship allowance, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm aware that a report was done and was presented to the Ministry of Public Service, Honorable Speaker. But as is characteristic of this country, Honorable Speaker, very good reports that ought to infuse changes where necessary gather dust in these offices, Honorable Speaker. Up to now, that report has not been presented either to Parliament that came up with this matter through your direction, or be taken to the Ministry of Treasury and Economic Planning, Honorable Speaker, for direction, because it is a matter that touches on more funding to go towards addressing the challenges that bedevil our people in hardship areas, Honorable Speaker. So I need your direction at this point, Honorable Speaker, to ask the Ministry of Public Service to do the necessary, because they have the reports with them there, either to bring them here or forward them to Treasury, so that the areas that were excluded inadvertently or otherwise can be incorporated into this scheme, Honorable Speaker. Because as you know, there are many areas that have been disenfranchised, and we spoke about this. Where I come from, for example, and a representative of the wishes of many people here, I sit between Muhoroni and Nyakach constituencies, both of which are benefiting from hardship allowance. Immediately, teachers are brought into Nyando constituency. They apply to be transferred to those areas because of this incentive, Honorable Speaker. So the report is out, the report is available. Direct, Honorable Speaker, that the necessary channels that ought to ensue need to take shape, Honorable Speaker, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jared. Owen Bayer, can you follow up that matter and report to the House on Wednesday afternoon next week?
All right, thank you very much.
I think that's a matter that, as Jared Okello rightly puts it, in the last session, it was raised here not less than 3-4 times.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Sorry,
Ruku. Give Ruku the mic. Is it on the same issue or something different?
It's on a similar issue.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, before we broke for recess, you gave instructions that the first thing which should be done when we come here is for the chairman of Health Committee to give a report on the status of the rust expense and death gratuity payment to the survivors and beneficiaries of National Health Insurance Fund and Public Service Superannuation Scheme. I brought this matter about 3 times, Mr. Speaker, and the Committee of Health, the Departmental Committee of Health, failed to bring this matter to give a statement as far as this issue is concerned. And you gave a directive that first thing before we do anything, when we come back, is for the chairman of Departmental Committee of Health to give the report, or to table the report on this matter. And from the look of things, Mr. Speaker, we are starting the business without the chairman of Departmental Committee on Health giving the status of this issue.
Well noted, Owen Bayer.
Thank
Note
you.
that and see if a response and attention can be dealt with by Thursday next week.
Much obliged, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, CNN. What was it? On the same hardship issue?
Yes, it's on the same issue, but Mr. Speaker, I was not sure whether Owen Bayer was actually aware what you requested him to do, but he has clarified, he has gotten what he's supposed to follow up. Thank you, sir.
You have capacity to know whether he's understanding or not from where you are sitting? Yes, Owen.
Honorable Speaker, I have immense capacity. You know, the Honorable CNN failed to lift a plane after having been trained for 8 years as a pilot. So we can continue to doubt his ability as a failed pilot. But I have heard, Honorable Speaker, and we're going to ensure that the House is well informed. I'm informed that the reports from the Honorable Pokose are actually ready, Yes, you're aware, and we'll just make
Directed
sure
that it will be on Tuesday.
that on the same that day, Honorable Speaker, they are tabled in the House, and we'll also get the report that Jared has requested to ensure the House, the promises that the House has made are brought here. Honorable Speaker, much obliged. Thank you very much.
And assure CNN that you are alert.
And I'll say, and then I'm usually very, very alert, and I can multitask.
Yes, clerk. Next order.
Order number 20, the Public Transport Motorcycle Regulation Bill, Senate Bill number 38 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the regulation of the border industry and for connected purposes. Order number 21, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 40 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Public Finance Management Act and for connected purposes. Order number 22, the Fire and Rescue Services Professionals Bill, Senate Bill number 55 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the promotion, development, and regulation of the fire and rescue services profession, to provide for the establishment of institutional and regulatory framework for representation, participation, training, and regulation of fire and rescue services professional practice and for connected purposes. Order number 23, the Intergovernmental Relations Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 12 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Intergovernmental Relations Act and for connected purposes. Order number 24, the Political Parties Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Political Parties Act, Cap 7D, and for connected purposes. Order number 25, the Elections Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bill number 29 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Elections Act and for connected purposes.
Next order. Now go back to order number 8.
Order number 8, procedural motion, limitation of debate on bills sponsored by parties for committee or committees.
Owen Bayer.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on the limitation of debate on bills sponsored by parties or committees. Honorable Speaker, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on bills sponsored by a committee, the leader of the majority party or the leader of the minority party, be limited as follows: a maximum of 45 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying, a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairpersons of the relevant committee if the bill is not sponsored by the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each if the bill is not sponsored by either of them, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Speaker, I request the Chief Whip, the Honorable Sylvanus Mayengo Osoro, to second.
Honorable Osoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I first want to correct the Honorable Owen Bayer that I'm not called Majengo.
You are called?
I am not. He referred me as Majengo Osoro, and I'm telling him it's not Majengo, it's Onyego. My surname is actually Onyego and not Majengo, as he's put it. But Honorable Speaker, ideally what the Deputy Majority Leader has said and has moved is largely the tradition in this House as far as motions and bills are concerned, that you need to give the mover of the bill adequate time to explain himself or herself, and that is 45 minutes, like he's well put it, and also give preference on the leadership of the House, of course, to be able to also air their views as the leader of the minority and the leader of majority. So for that reason, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the debate on the bill sponsored by a committee and the leader of majority or the leader of minority be limited as follows. A maximum of 45 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee if the bill is not sponsored by the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each if the bill is not sponsored by either of them, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority and the leader of minority and the chairperson of the relevant committee in that order. Okay, the mood of the House is to put the question. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the debate on the bill sponsored by the committee, the leader of the majority party or the leader of the minority party be limited as follows. A maximum of 45 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee if the bill is not sponsored by the relevant committee. And a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each if the bill is not sponsored by either of them, and that the priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority, the leader of minority, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, procedural motion, limitation of debate on individual members' bills.
Majority Leader, proceed. Give him the mic.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I wish the members that are leaving would stay because this is very important for them. I beg to move the procedural motion, limitation on debate on individual members' bills. That pursuant to the
Majority
provisions of
whip.
Standing Order 90.
Majority whip, I think you can whip the members to come back in because we need them. It's a very important motion.
Yes, this is a very important procedural motion for
You're
members.
foiling on your job.
Because we actually limit their time at this level. That pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on bills not sponsored by a committee, the leader of the majority party or the leader of the minority party, be limited as follows. A maximum of 3 hours and 30 minutes with not more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying. A maximum of 30 minutes for the chairpersons of the relevant committee and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Speaker, I request the honorable member for Nandi, MP for Nandi, the Honorable Muge, to actually second this motion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion on the limitation of debate on individual members' bills. Of course, Honorable Speaker, since it came to the order paper, I have been keen enough to ask the Deputy Majority Leader why the huge difference between those sponsored by government and the individual motions and bills, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I must say that this is where efficiency in terms of use of time will be measured, especially on the bills that are sponsored by members. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I support this because this will actually ensure that the short period of time that is given for the prosecution of private members' bills is utilized and is shared equally so that we can be able to move more motions and more bills that are sponsored by private members. I must say, Honorable Speaker, this is a very progressive provision, and 3 hours, Honorable Speaker, quite frankly speaking, is adequate for someone who has actually known what they want to move, the intention, and actually put their thoughts together so they can be able to move this motion. Honorable Speaker, it is also very interesting, and I have seen the ultimate importance of the leadership of the House. Honorable Speaker, that the majority and the minority and the committee chair still get a lot of more time than anyone else, even in a private member's sponsored bill. And Honorable Speaker, I must say that when I grow older, I must make sure that I am also a leader of majority or a committee chair so that I can be able to enjoy the ultimate importance of those particular positions. I support this motion, Honorable Speaker, and I ask the honorable members to be able to support it so that we can be able to have adequate time to share the little time that is available for us to move private members' bills in this House. I support, Honorable Speaker. I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the debate on bills not sponsored by a committee, the leader of majority or the leader of minority, be limited as follows: a maximum of 3 hours and 30 minutes, with not more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that the priority of speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party, leader of minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the debate on bills not sponsored by the committee, the leader of majority party or the leader of minority party be limited as follows: a maximum of 3 hours and 30 minutes, with not more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying. A maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of majority and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that the priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, procedural motion, limitation of debate on motions.
I think we are going to ask the ICT team to give you your card, to give you a new card.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion, limitation of debate on motions. That pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited in the following manner: a maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that 10 minutes, therefore, before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairpersons of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Speaker, this motion, when does it limits time for debates, that when you're contributing, you have 10 minutes, which sometimes the mood of the House says 3 minutes and all that, but we give 10 minutes to members to contribute. I'd like to ask my friend Clive to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. While I second this motion, Honorable Speaker, I would also like to request that while at it, that the leadership gets sufficient time to explain the motion and give guidance to this House. Sometimes we've seen that it's not necessary for the leadership to utilize the entire 15 minutes, where they go around giving issues that are outside the context of the motion. I request that the leadership are limited to stick within the content of the motion so that enough time is allocated to the other members rather than them utilizing their full time, and then the other members have to be asked to reduce their time to 5 or 3 minutes. But with that, Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of majority and the leader of minority, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that 10 minutes after the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that the priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant committee in that order. I'll let you sit. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97, this House orders that each speech in the debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of majority and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that the priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 11, procedural motion, limitation of debate on reports of audit committees.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on limitation of debate on reports of audit committees. That pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in debate on reports of audit committees be limited as follows. A maximum of 60 minutes for the mover in moving and 30 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and the priority be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party in that order. Honorable Speaker, I request the Honorable Jamatia to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to second the motion. Thank you.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the debate on reports of audit committees be limited as follows. A maximum of 60 minutes for the mover in moving and 30 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority be accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. Okay, let me allow I'll allow Honorable Kainan for a minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, audit committees play a very important role in safeguarding the public interest. I want to request the House Business Committee to fast track all the pending reports of the audit committees, because that's the only way we can assess whether the public gets value for money. This should not be treated just like any other report, because what it means, these entities are audited by the Office of the Auditor General. Parliament is supposed to act now as a neutral arbiter and provide an avenue for the audited agencies and the auditor to explain the same, so that the public also gets to understand this. So my plea is, and I'm sure my friend Kimani Chunga is also hearing this, let's fast track this, because, and let them be given proper attention, so that the taxpayers outside there, whatever that has been appropriated, how they have been used, can be seen in the audit report. And I'm sure I also want to request the committee chairs and the committee members to take this serious, because outside there, there's a lot of, Madam Speaker, you know, today outside there, the public perception about Parliament, the public perception about the incidence of corruption is so high. We need to change this so that the Kenyan public outside there are familiar with the role played by the Office of the Auditor General, with the role played by the audit committees, with the role played by Parliament, and ultimately accept that Parliament is there for their well-being. I support the motion.
Speaker, thank you for this moment. I just want to draw to the attention of my colleagues and the country as a whole that in respect to the new Constitution of Kenya 2010, it is required that audit reports are prosecuted, are analyzed, prosecuted, moved and approved otherwise by this National Assembly within 6 months from the end of the financial year or after tabling the same. There's a recent court case, Honorable Speaker, regarding Nairobi County Assembly, where the court has invalidated the findings of the audit committee reports that were passed way outside the timelines provided for under the Constitution. So I just want to urge members who are here that it's important that every single time as we prosecute these reports, we must put in mind the provision of the Constitution, otherwise the work of the National Assembly and the various county assemblies will be an exercise in futility and will just all vanity and waste of public resources. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the debate of reports of audit committees be limited as follows: a maximum of 60 minutes for the mover in moving and 30 minutes in replying, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that the priority be accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 12, procedural motion, limitation of debate on other committee reports.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion limitation of debate on other committee reports. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on other committee reports, including a report of a joint committee of the Houses of Parliament, or any other report submitted to the House for which limitation of time has not been specified, be limited as follows: a maximum of 2.5 hours with no more than 20 minutes for the mover in moving and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the relevant committee, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. And further, the priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party in that order. Honorable Speaker, I request the Honorable Ngusia, CNN, to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Without wasting a lot of time, because it's a procedural motion, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on other committee reports, including the report of the joint committees of the Houses of Parliament or any other report submitted to the House for which limitation of time has not been specified, be limited as follows. A maximum of 2.5 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover in moving and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant committee, if the committee report is not moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further, that priority in speaking shall be given and accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on other committee reports, including a report of a joint committee of the Houses of Parliament, or any other report submitted to the House for which limitation of time has not been specified, shall be limited as follows. A maximum of 2.5 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover in moving and 5 minutes for any other member in speaking, including the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party and the chairperson of the relevant committee, if the committee report is not moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee. And that 10 minutes before the expiry of time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. And further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 13, procedural motion, limitation of debate on the address by the President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion, limitation of debate on the address by His Excellency the President. Honorable Speaker, that noting that Standing Order 24-6 provides that debate on a motion on the address by the President shall be limited to not more than 4 sitting days, and pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that debate on a motion on the address by His Excellency the President under Article 132(1)(a) of the Constitution be limited as follows. A maximum of 30 minutes for the mover in moving, 20 minutes for the leader of the minority party, and 10 minutes each to the chairpersons of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs to speak on the report submitted under Article 132(1)(c)(1) of the Constitution relating to the realization of the national values. The chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence, and Foreign Relations to speak on the report submitted under Article 132(1)(c)(3) of the Constitution relating to the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic. And the chairpersons of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security to speak on the report submitted under Article 247 of the Constitution relating to the state of the security of the country. And 5 minutes for any other member speaking, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. Honorable Speaker, I would like to request the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, the MP for Kibwezi, to second.
Before you second, allow me to recognize the students before they leave. I wish to recognize the presence of St. Patrick's Hill School from Kajiado West Constituency, Kajiado County, who are seated in the public gallery. I also wish to recognize Mary Hill Girls School from Thika West constituency, Kiambu County, who are seated in the public gallery. On behalf of the members of the National Assembly, we wish you pleasant proceedings. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that noting that the Standing Order 24.6 provides that the debate on the motion of the address of the President shall be limited to not more than 4 sitting days, and pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97.1, this House orders that the debate on the motion of the address of His Excellency the President under Article 132.1a of the Constitution be limited as follows. A maximum of 30 minutes for the mover in moving, 20 minutes for the leader of minority party, and 10 minutes each to the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs to speak on the report submitted under Article 132.1ci of the Constitution relating to the realization of our national values. The chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence, and Foreign Affairs to speak to the report submitted under Article 132.1c3 of the Constitution relating to the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic, and the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security to speak on the report submitted under Article 247 of the Constitution relating to the state of the security of the country, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, and at 10 minutes before the expiry of time, the mover shall be called to reply. Honorable members, I now put the question that noting that the Standing Order 24.6 provides that debate on a motion on the address of the President shall be limited to not more than 4 sitting days, and pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97.1, this House orders that the debate on the motion of the address by His Excellency the President under Article 132.1a of the Constitution be limited as follows. A maximum of 30 minutes for the mover in moving, 20 minutes for the leader of minority party, and 10 minutes for each to the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs to speak on the report submitted under Article 132.1c1 of the Constitution relating to the realization of national values. The chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence, and Foreign Affairs to speak on the report submitted under Article 132.1c3 of the Constitution relating to the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic, and the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security to speak on the report under Article 247 of the Constitution relating to the state of the security of the country, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of time, the mover shall be called to reply. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 14, procedural motion, limitation of debate on sessional papers.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on the limitation of debate on sessional papers, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97.1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any sessional paper shall be limited as follows: a maximum of 2.5 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover in moving, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party and the chairpersons of the relevant committee, if the sessional paper is not moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee. Honorable Speaker, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of minority party in that order. Honorable Speaker, I would like to request the Honorable Jerusha Mongina Momanyi, the Honorable Member of Nyamira, to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any sessional paper shall be limited as follows: a maximum of 2.5 hours, with not more than 20 minutes for the mover in moving, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority and the leader of minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant committee. If the sessional paper is not moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of the minority party, in that order. May I put the question? I now put the question, honorable members, which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any sessional paper shall be limited as follows: a maximum of 2.5 hours, with not more than 20 minutes for the mover in moving, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant committee if the sessional paper is not moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee. And that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 15, procedural motion, limitation of debate on reports of constitutional commissions and independent offices.
Leader, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on the limitation of debate on reports of constitutional commissions and independent offices. Honorable Speaker, the pursuant to the provisions of the Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in debate on reports of the Constitutional Commission and independent offices be limited as follows: a maximum of 4 hours with no more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and the priority be accorded to the chairpersons of the relevant committee, the leader of the majority party, and the leader of the minority party, in that order. Honorable Speaker, these are constitutional commissions and independent offices. When we have this kind of motion, Honorable Speaker, they are accorded that time as distributed. Honorable Speaker, I wish to request, the one I was targeting is not here, but I want to request the Honorable Sabina Chege, the whip of the Jubilee Party, to second.
Honorable Sabina Chege, please proceed. Whip Jubilee Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I second. And Madam Speaker, I just want to urge the House Business Committee, as they plan on the talkings and the timing and the timelines, we have, and the limitation of debate, Madam Speaker, we have many private members' bills that are very important. So I know they tend to prioritize the government bills, which is okay. But we have many bills that need to come to this floor of the House, and we execute them, Madam Speaker, because they are very important to this nation. But I second. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 71, 79, honorable members, I will take that again. I'll start afresh. I now propose the question that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in debate on reports of constitutional commissions and independent offices be limited as follows: a maximum of 4 hours with not more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and the priority be accorded to the chairperson of the relevant committee, the leader of the majority party, and the leader of the minority party, in that order. Honorable members, do I go on to put the question? Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in debate on reports of constitutional commissions and independent offices be limited as follows: a maximum of 4 hours with not more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for the other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority be accorded to the chairperson of the relevant committee, the leader of the majority party, and the leader of the minority party, in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 16, procedural motion, limitation of debate on the annual estimates and committee of supply.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on the limitation of debate on the annual estimates and committee of supply. Honorable Speaker, that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates contemplated under Standing Order 239 and 240 be limited as follows: general supply debate, a maximum of 3 sitting days with 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 15 minutes for each of the chairpersons of the departmental committees, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the respective chairpersons of the departmental committees, in that order that they appear in the second schedule to the standing orders. And 2, committee of supply, a maximum of 6 sittings for the consideration of the proposed allocations to the respective votes programs in the order specified in the schedule submitted by the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Honorable Speaker, we are starting the budget cycle. Today we laid the paper that is supposed to trigger the budget cycle. And this procedural motion, therefore, gives guidance to that debate. Many times people ask, what is a committee of supply? What is a general supply debate? And sometimes it mixes up members in this chamber. But it's important that they acquaint themselves. And I would like to request the Honorable almost senior counsel, Honorable Chepkonga, to second this.
Honorable Chepkonga, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'd like to thank Honorable Baya for moving this important motion. As you can see, Madam Speaker, I'm seated next to ladies here, members of Parliament, who are preparing for tomorrow's day. Just a reminder that tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Even as I second this motion, that the women are giving notice to the men to be prepared tomorrow to take them out for Valentine's Day, because we are not sitting tomorrow. And with those remarks, Madam Speaker, I second.
Chairman, Honorable Chepkonga. And we thank you very much for seconding. Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates contemplated under Standing Order 239 and 240 be limited as follows. 1. General supply debate. A maximum of 3 sitting days with 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 15 minutes for each of the chairpersons of the departmental committees and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of a minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, and the respective chairpersons of the departmental committees in the order that they appear in the second schedule to the standing orders. And 2, the Committee of Supply, a maximum of 6 sitting days for the consideration of the proposed allocations to the respective votes programs in the order specified in the schedule submitted by the Budget and Appropriations Committee. May I go ahead and put the question? Honorable members, I now put the question, which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in a debate on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates contemplated under Standing Order 239 and 240 be limited as follows. 1, general supply debate. A maximum of 3 sitting days with 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 15 minutes for each of the chairpersons of the departmental committees and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and the priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of minority party, and the respective chairpersons of the departmental committees, in the order that they appear in the second schedule to the standing orders. And 2, the Committee of Supply, a maximum of 6 sitting days for the consideration of the proposed allocations to the respective votes programs in that order specified in the schedule submitted by Budget and Appropriations Committee. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 17, procedural motion, limitation of debate on consideration of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly.
Majority Leader, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on the limitation of debate on consideration of Senate amendments to the bills originating in the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order 146, consideration of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly, be limited as follows: a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving, 15 minutes for the chairpersons of the relevant departmental committee, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, if the bill is not party sponsored. And that 5 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. And further, that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Speaker, I would like to request the Honorable Mudhoni to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do second this proposal by the majority leader. Thank you.
Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Orders 97.1, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order 147, consideration of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly be limited as follows: a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving, 15 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, if the bill is not party-sponsored. And that 5 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. And further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the mover of to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, in that order. Thank you. I'll put the question. I want to give a chance to the senior to take his seat. Thank you very much, honorable members. I now proceed to put the question, which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 971, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order 147, consideration of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly, be limited as follows: a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving, 15 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, if the bill is not party-sponsored. And 5 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. And further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, in that order. Will as many as have that opinion say aye? Will as many as have contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 18, procedural motion, consideration of business received during the recess periods.
Majority Leader, please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on consideration of business received during the recess period. Honorable Speaker, that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 41 and 42 relating to conveying of messages from the Senate and from the President or the National Executive, Standing Orders 120, 122, and 126 relating to publications, procedure upon publication, and first reading of bills, and Standing Order 210, 2 relating to tabling of statutory instruments. This House orders that during the short and long recess of the fourth session, one, upon receipt of any message from the Senate or upon receipt of any names of a person nominated for appointment to a state or public office from the President or any other office in the National Executive, the Speaker shall forthwith refer such message to the relevant committee for consideration without having to recall the House, and report such fact to the House on reception. 2, upon receipt of any message relating to the Senate's amendment to a bill originating in the National Assembly, the Speaker shall forthwith refer the schedule of the Senate amendment to the relevant committee for consideration pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 145, Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly, and report such fact to the House on reception. 3, should a bill be published during the said period, or a published bill becomes due for first reading, the Speaker shall, upon lapse of at least 3 days following the publication of the bill and following a determination that such bill is of priority, forthwith refer such bill to the relevant committee for the consideration pursuant to the provisions of the Standing Order 127, that is committal of bills to committees and public participation, and cause the bill to be read a first time upon its next sitting, and the second reading may be taken forthwith or on such day as the House Business Committee may determine. 4, should any statutory instrument be transmitted for tabling before the House during the period, the Speaker shall, following a determination that the statutory instrument is of priority, forthwith refer the statutory instrument to the relevant committee for consideration and cause the statutory instrument to be tabled in the House upon its next sitting in accordance with the provision of Section 2 of the Statutory Amendment Instrument Act number 3 of 2023. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, should any paper be transmitted for tabling before the House, the Speaker shall, following a determination that the paper is of priority, forthwith refer the paper to the relevant committee for consideration and cause the paper to be tabled in the House upon its next sitting. Honorable Speaker, all these five matters refer to matters that come to the House when the House is on recess. And during that recess, then this procedural motion gives the Speaker the latitude and the privilege and the power to ensure that he can transmit these businesses to the relevant committee during this time and report to the House when the House sits. Honorable Speaker, I want to use this opportunity to call upon the Honorable General Basil to speak on this and second. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you.
I heard General. He's not called.
Basil the MP for Yatta.
Member for Yatta, please proceed.
I think he wants to promote me, but I've not been in the military, so I don't know why he's using the word general as a before my name. Anyway, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Deputy Majority Leader for requesting me to second this procedural motion. When I keenly look at the calendar of the National Assembly for 2025, it's very well structured, and I have no doubt to say I second the procedural motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member for Yatta, Honorable Basil. Honorable members, I now propose the question that notwithstanding provisions of Standing Orders 41 and 42 relating to conveying of messages from the Senate and from the President or the National Executive, Standing Order 120, 122, and 126 relating to publication, procedure, and upon publication in the first reading of bills, and Standing Order 122 relating to tabling of statutory instruments. This House orders that during the short and long recess of the fourth session, 1, upon receipt of any messages from the Senate or upon receipt of any name of a person nominated for appointment to a state or public office from the President or any other office in the National Executive, the Speaker shall forthwith refer such message to the relevant committee for consideration without having to recall the House and report such facts to the House on resumption. 2, upon receipt of any message relating to the Senate's amendments to a bill originating in the National Assembly, the Speaker shall forthwith refer the schedule to the Senate amendment to the relevant committee for consideration pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 145, Senate amendment to bills originating in the National Assembly, and report such facts to the House on resumption. 3, should a bill be published during the said period or a published bill become due for the first reading, the Speaker shall, upon lapse of at least 3 days following the publication of the bill and following a determination that such bill is of priority, forthwith refer such bill to the relevant committee for consideration pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 127, committal of bill to committees and public participation, and cause the bill to be read a first time upon its next sitting, and the second reading may be taken forthwith or on such other day as the House Business Committee may determine. 4, should any other statutory instrument be transmitted for tabling before the House during the period, the Speaker shall, following a determination that the statutory instrument is a priority, forthwith refer the statutory instrument to the relevant committee for consideration and cause the statutory instrument to be tabled in the House upon its next sitting, in accordance with the provisions of Section 11 of the Statutory Instruments Act, number 3 of 2013, and 5, should any paper be transmitted for tabling before the House, the Speaker shall, following a determination that the paper is of priority, forthwith refer the paper to the relevant committee for consideration and cause the paper to be tabled in the House upon the next sitting. Honorable members may now go ahead and put the question. I now put the question, which is that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 41 and 42 relating to conveying of messages from the Senate and from the President or the National Executive, Standing Orders 120, 122, and 126 relating to publication, procedure upon publication, and first reading of bills, and Standing Order 210-2 relating to tabling of statutory instruments. This House orders that during the short and long recess of the fourth session 1, upon receipt of any message from the Senate or upon receipt of any name of a person nominated for appointment to a state or public office from the President or any other office in the National Executive, the Speaker shall forthwith refer such message to the relevant committee for consideration without having to recall the House, and report such fact to the House on resumption. 2, upon receipt of any message relating to the Senate amendment to a bill originating in the National Assembly, the Speaker shall forthwith refer the schedule of the Senate amendment to the relevant committee for consideration, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 145, Senate amendment to bills originating in the National Assembly, and report such fact to the House on resumption. 3, should a bill be published during the said period or a published bill become due for the first time, the Speaker shall, upon lapse of at least 3 days following the publication of the bill and following a determination that such a bill is of priority, forthwith refer such bill to the relevant committee for consideration, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 127, committal of bills to committees and public participation, and cause the bill to be read a first time upon its next sitting. And the second reading may be taken forthwith or such other day or on such other day as the House Business Committee may determine. 4, should any statutory instrument be transmitted for tabling before the House during the period, the Speaker shall, following a determination that the statutory instrument is a priority, forthwith refer the statutory instrument to the relevant committee for consideration and cause the statutory instrument to be tabled in the House upon the next sitting in accordance with the provisions of Section 11 of the Statutory Act number 3 of 2013. And 5, should any paper be transmitted for tabling before the House, the Speaker shall, following a determination that the paper is a priority, forthwith refer the paper to the relevant committee for consideration and cause the paper to be tabled in the House upon its next sitting. Honorable members, may I put the question? Honorable members, will as many as have that opinion say aye? Will as many as have a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 19, procedural motion, limitation of debate on legislative proposals to amend the constitution.
Majority Leader,
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know it's a long day for you, but we are managing. As Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motion on the limitation of debate on legislative proposals to amend the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order 1147A and B, consideration of the legislative proposals to amend the Constitution, be limited as follows.
a maximum of 20 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying. 15 minutes for the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party if the proposal is not party sponsored. Members with similar or related proposals and the chairpersons of the relevant departmental committee, and 10 minutes for any other member speaking, and further that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, in that order. Honorable Speaker, I would like to request the Honorable Professor Barto Jeb Kimoy to second.
Honorable Dr. Barto.
Madam Speaker, I second.
Thank you very much, Professor. Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order 114-7A-B, consideration of a legislative proposal to amend the Constitution be limited as follows: a maximum of 20 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, 15 minutes for the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, if the proposal is not party-sponsored. Members with similar or related proposals and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committees, and 10 minutes for any other member speaking. And further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committees, in that order. I'll now go ahead and put the question. I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 971, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order 114-7A-B, consideration of a legislative proposal to amend the Constitution, be limited as follows: a maximum of 20 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, 15 minutes for the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, if the proposal is not party-sponsored. Members with similar or related proposals and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committees, and 10 minutes for any other member speaking. And further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committees, in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 26, motion, approval of the calendar of the National Assembly for 2025.
Yes, honorable members, you realize that we have skipped 2021, 22, 23, and now we are on. You may proceed, Majority Leader. Honorable Mbaya. Thank you very much. I would like to put on record that order number 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25 were already considered by the Speaker and the House. So now we may proceed with order number 26 as read. Honorable Majority Leader.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of the Standing Order 28, this House approves the calendar of the National Assembly regular sessions for the 4th session 2025 as contained in the schedule to the order paper. Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee has proposed a total of 199 sittings between 11th of February 2025 and 4th of December 2025. This excludes special sittings and any extra sitting that the House may resolve to sit. Honorable Speaker, as members may be aware, business in the first part of the session is mostly guided by the submission of the budget policy statement, the BPS, which we laid today, and the medium-term budget strategy by 15th February 2025, which we have laid also today, the budget policy statement and the medium-term debt strategy, which we laid today and should be considered and adopted by the House
within 14 days. So Honorable Speaker and members, within the next 14 days from today, we'll be considering these two very important documents that we have laid, and this will be done within the 14 days. So I request members to read the budget policy statement and also to ensure that they have acquainted themselves to the contents of the medium-term budget, term debt strategy, which we have done today. Honorable Speaker, additionally, we expect the Division of Revenue Bill to be introduced in the National Assembly by 10th of March 2024. Honorable Speaker, as we are aware, the Division of Revenue Bill usually is a very contentious document because of what counties want, what the national government wants, what the equalization fund wants, and all those. So, Honorable Speaker, I request that members make sure that they read the Division of Revenue Bill and take a position, and we debate this matter here by the 10th of March when we table this. Honorable Speaker, the second part of the session is guided by the budget timelines on conducting of public hearings by the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the annual budget estimates. This should be undertaken before the committee tables its report on the estimates for approval by the House. Honorable Speaker, we know what happened last session when we had the budget and the finance bill coming to this House, and I think it's important that proper public participation be conducted so that the residents of this country and our residents in our constituencies are aware of the contents of these two very important documents as we prepare, Honorable Speaker, going forward. Honorable Speaker, again, further, mid-June will be pronouncements of the budget highlights. A very important day for Parliament and for the country, the budget highlights, where we have, and the revenue raising measures, where we have the Cabinet Secretary will come to present such in this House. Honorable Speaker, you may find it very interesting that for the first time, the Honorable John Ngongo Mbandi will be coming to this House, not as a member sitting, but as a Cabinet Secretary to lay the budget estimates and appropriations in this House. So we look forward to mid-June when the highlights on the budget and highlights on revenue raising measures will come to this, and therefore approval of the Budget and Appropriations Committee report on the annual estimates, introduction and approval of the appropriations bill will be done during this time. Very important piece of legislation that we shall have, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, important also is the finance bill. The appropriations bill and any other supplementary appropriations bill should be approved by 30th of June 2025. So the finance bill, and I know I have seen a lot of effort, Honorable Speaker, to ensure the finance bill that we are bringing into this House is put to the general public and proper debate is taken and proper public participation. And I want to commend the efforts of the Honorable John Mbadi for having started off. I saw him at Jivanji Gardens. I have seen him today doing a very good press conference and enlightening the public. And that's how important it is, Honorable Speaker, when you have a Cabinet Secretary who has come from this House and who has served in this House, and he goes out there, becomes Cabinet Secretary, and he takes over the work and he does it with enthusiasm and passion, and he wants to inform the public. And I think that is really commendable to the Minister and the Ministry in Treasury. Honorable Speaker, the preparations of the calendar has also taken into consideration religious holidays, with Easter Good Friday being on the 18th of April 2025, and the Easter Monday falling on 21st April 2025, and similar Eid ul Fitri is expected to take place on the Sunday of 30th March 2025, or Monday 31st or March 2025, depending on the sighting of the moon. Honorable Speaker, it's important that members also take time off with their families to celebrate these very important holidays, and therefore the calendar that we have has taken cognizance of this, and therefore we have put it in there to ensure that members go out there for these holidays. Honorable Speaker, it's also worth noting that the annual prayer breakfast, a very important date for this House, the annual prayer breakfast, which is actually attended by many dignitaries from outside the country, and also His Excellency the President, the Cabinet, and every other member. We come together to pray for this country, are very important. And I hope the committee that is led by the Honorable Chepkonga. Honorable Chepkonga today, he's preparing for Valentine, and he's very busy trying to get a Valentine date for tomorrow, where he is seated. But I want to remind him of his role as the chairman of the annual prayer breakfast. please make sure it is properly prepared so that members join, the country joins in this annual event. We have therefore prepared the calendar to ensure that this important event in our parliamentary calendar falls within the period when the House is sitting. This will enable many members to attend. Honorable Speaker, finally, Honorable Speaker, the calendar has taken into consideration the school calendars for both primary and secondary school holidays. The intention of this is to enable members and staff with children to attend to them during the school holiday. Honorable Speaker, with those very many remarks, I request that we adhere to this calendar. This calendar is very important to drive the business of this House, and we have a lot of work to do within the 119 sittings that we shall be here during this year. And therefore, I would request, in the absence of my counterpart on the other side, who was supposed to second this because he sits in the House Business Committee, I would like to request the Council, Honorable Murungara, a very standing, a very outstanding member of this House, to second. Thank you very much.
Honorable Murungara, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I move to second this procedural motion, it's important that I also echo the sentiments of the Leader of Majority, in that we have our hands full, as shown by this calendar. We have a lot to do, and especially in the budget making process, which has just started and which will be with us until the end of June 2025. Thereafter, we'll be looking at the particular acts of parliament to actualize the budget, including the Finance Act or Finance Bill and the Division of Revenue Bill, which will all be coming to us. And it's vitally important to remind the country what we went through last year, that we should actually have adequate public participation, right from this House to the government itself, the executive, through the Honorable John Mbandi, so that the population does not once more say they are not informed, they do not know what is in this budget, while in fact, these processes are very important. There is no country in this world that can run without financial statements, without a budget, or without taxation, or without everything else that was rejected in the previous Finance Act. So we have to prepare ourselves. We know that as parliamentarians who will take the flak. We are the ones who will be blamed for most of this. But as we do this, and as we ensure that our constituents are informed on what we are doing, let the executive also come in and even play a bigger role. With those remarks, I urge the members to take the work of the House very seriously and ensure that we have the necessary quorums at all times to ensure that the business of the day on each particular day is transacted to the fullest. Those remarks I beg to second.
Thank you, Honorable Murungara, member for Tharaka. Honorable members, I propose the question that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 28, this House approves the calendar of the National Assembly regular session for the 4th session 2025, as contained in the schedule to the order paper. Before I put the question, I'd like to give a chance to the Honorable Samuel Chepkonga, member for Ainapkoi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this very important motion. As you know, Madam Speaker, members need to know when we are proceeding on recess, when we are coming back to the House, so that we can plan appropriately to be in our constituencies. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Owen Bayer, who is my very good friend, made an attempt to say that the Honorable Murungara is in good standing. I don't know good standing where in this House, all members who are in this House, Madam Speaker, are in good standing. Unless he wants to talk about the legal profession. It is true, the Honorable Murungara is in good standing. That's why he has a practicing certificate. But not with regard to this House. All members are in good standing, Madam Speaker. And with those remarks, I beg to support.
Thank you. I'll now put the question. Honorable members, I put the question that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 28, this House approves the calendar of the National Assembly regular session for the 4th session 2025 as contained in the schedule to the order paper. Will as many as have that opinion say aye? Will as many as have a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 27, the Equalization Fund Administration Bill, Senate Bill number 14 of 2023, second reading.
Honorable members, the Chairperson Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning is engaged in other House matters, so this will be pushed to another day. Next order.
Order number 28, the Political Parties Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2022, second reading.
Honorable members, the Vice Chairperson, Procedure and House Rules Committee is also engaged in other important business of this House, and therefore that is also pushed to another day as it will be scheduled by the House Business Committee. Honorable members, there being no other business, and thank you for your patience. Honorable members, and the time now being 6 minutes to 5 o'clock, this House stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 18th of February, 2025 at 2:30 p.m.
Well, the National Assembly has adjourned its sitting for this afternoon sitting. Remember, the business of the day has been concluded, and that marks the end of today's meeting, or rather sitting, until next week, Tuesday, in the afternoon sitting. And that is it from the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. Allow me to hand it over back to the Broadcasting House for normal programming. Good evening.
When you cut one tree, you plant two. That was one of his rallying calls. I don't know why Senator Haji has proposed in this particular amendment under Section 4 that instead of what Nyayo used to tell us, that you cut one, plant two, he's saying when you cut one, you plant one. Honorable Haji, as a person who I know you also grew up during that era, we should at least encourage that there has to be growth from that position of Moi, and even adopt the position that has been given by Senator Mariam where if you cut one, you plant three. Honorable Speaker, as a senator for Nairobi, many Nairobians believe that in 2004 we had one of the best town clerks by the name John Gakuo, and he's credited for providing a clean environment for the people of Nairobi. He sorted out the garbage menace at that particular point in time. He is famously known for dreaming of a city in a forest. And in an interview just a few months before he passed away, he said that his one biggest regret was that he was not able to achieve that dream. I remember, Honorable Speaker, many people can still remember how Mombasa Road all the way through to Uhuru Highway used to look. It was a boulevard with very nice mature trees in the median and also on the side of the road. But Honorable Speaker, subsequent developments have come, including the construction of the expressway, that have ensured that all those trees that used to be in those places were cut down. And we, as a leadership of Nairobi, of course, are extremely concerned with the state of the environment in the city. Some of the issues that have been brought up by Senator Mungatana, including the continued closure or barring of residents from accessing Uhuru Gardens and Central Park, which is part of Uhuru Park. Honorable Speaker, in April of 2024, the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, the Honorable Aden Duale, appeared before plenary of this House, and he committed to this House that he was going to hand back both of those parks, both Uhuru Park, Central Park, and even Uhuru Gardens, back to the people of Nairobi. The situation that has been described by Senator Mungatana is something I can attest to. If you go to Langata Road on a Saturday, when ordinarily many people do their laundry or household chores, you will find many of those women who do those chores have nowhere to sit. They sit along the road, and it is quite an unsightly thing to see. Not to mention the lack of facilities for the people of Nairobi to relax. Honorable Speaker, therefore, we must continue to call on the Ministry of Defense, because these two parks were taken over by the Ministry of Defense in February of 2022, and they are being renovated by the military. And the CS himself committed here, and you heard him say that, in fact, he was going to do it the next day, which was the 18th of April in 2024. We are almost coming to a year since that pronouncement by the CS, and that situation is unacceptable. Honorable Speaker, there was another baffling piece of news that I saw this week. The president telling us that they had planted 750 million trees over a period of 12 months in 2024. For many of us, the math was not mathing, as they say in the streets, because that would translate to 2 million trees per day. Honorable Speaker, 2 million trees per day being planted is not something you can hide. And we are hoping that these figures can be backed up. I hope that those who are participating in that tree planting, I can hear Senator Cherargei confirming that he planted 2 million trees a day, at least in Nandi. Let him show us where those trees have been planted. Honorable Speaker, we even went ahead and created a holiday for tree planting in this country, but the incentives are not there. And there's a very serious lack of transparency, Honorable Speaker, even surrounding the question of where these seedlings are being procured. Some of us might not look like we know much about tree planting, but Honorable Speaker, if I share with you my life history, in 2010, I was working for a billboard company here in Nairobi. And part of my duty was, in fact, because as Gakuo had said, the biggest enemy of trees in Nairobi were the people who are running the billboard business. And the company that I used to work for decided that they were going to take initiative in making sure that if there is any tree that is affected because of a billboard going up, we would plant at least 100 seedlings to replace that one tree. And Honorable Speaker, because I was the head of administration then, it fell to me to be the one in charge of that program. Believe it or not, in my suit as a lawyer, as an advocate, I used to know all the suppliers of tree seedlings in Nairobi, from the Kenya Forest Service there. They had a nursery on Kiambu Road, all the way to the people who sell trees on Ngong Road. All those people were my friends. I used to have suppliers of manure and red soil in Wangigi, who I knew by name. And we used to do tree planting sponsored by that company, Honorable Speaker. But you can see that because we have let go of the rules of the city, there is a serious proliferation of even the billboards in Nairobi, and nobody does that tree planting anymore. Honorable Speaker, we want that this particular amendment to the law, we hope will bring about some sanity and make sure that we return the city to the dream that Honorable John Gakuo had, even if in the end he met with a very ignominious end. Honorable Speaker, therefore, I want to be on record supporting this amendment. And Honorable Speaker, we want to urge again on behalf of the people of Nairobi that we must return this city to the people. And those facilities that were taken over by the military, it is now long overdue. We don't have to summon the CS for defense to this house again for him to again make promises. We just want the people of Nairobi have access to Central Park, Uhuru Park, and Uhuru Gardens. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, I have made it clear that I have a problem with the way this government communicates. We were all shocked a few months ago when we started seeing videos on social media of tree cutting that was allegedly going on in, what is it called, Karura Forest. Honorable Speaker, we were all alarmed, only for the Kenya Forest Service to follow out after the outrage. They follow up with a communication claiming that they were harvesting mature trees. Really, if the government or the Kenya Forest Service intends to harvest trees in any of our forested areas in Nairobi, they need to be able to communicate to us that this is what is going to happen. Not to wait for social media outrage, then they follow up with a communication that it is harvesting of mature trees that is going on. And they have not told us about any of the plans to replace that deforestation that happened. We were also very alarmed. One day we just wake up, Honorable Speaker, and when you're driving on the Southern Bypass, you find a whole section of the forest there cleared, and nobody gives any explanation. Then you hear, oh, there is somebody who's building a golf resort. Why are these things done in the manner in which they are done? If the government intends to run such a program, Honorable Speaker, I want them to change the way they communicate with the public. Make it clear that in the next 6 months, we want to undertake such and such a program, and that this is going to be the environmental effect for the people of Nairobi to know that this is a project that is being undertaken by government and not by people who are unscrupulous business people. So with those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator Sifuna. And if there is anybody who probably would be doubting that you were spearheading tree planting in the course of one of your assignments in the year 2010, yours truly can confirm that indeed you managed that sector very well when you were dealing with the billboard sector. And so you did a good job. I do also expect that in the course of your duties as a senator, please ensure you plant trees wherever you are, in and outside the city of Nairobi. Senator Moses Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the Environmental Laws Amendment Bill 2024, and I also want to congratulate Senator Abdul Mohamed Haji, who is the sponsor of this bill. Mr. Speaker, this is an important bill. It's surprising that existing legislation has not provided for what Senator Abdul Haji is calling for in this amendment, because this bill seeks to amend the existing act to make further provisions for afforestation and reforestation of forests in counties in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, this was a pet subject in the administration of President Daniel Arap Moi. Out of the many things he did, I think those of us who were in the 844 system of education, afforestation and reforestation was afforestation, reforestation, and deforestation were concepts that always came up in our GHC, geography, history, and civics syllabus and examination. I'm not very sure how the CBC has taken care of this, but I hope that the education curriculum has picked these concepts to encourage our children that a tree planted today is not a tree planted for today's child, it is a tree planted for our children and our grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. It is noble, Mr. Speaker, for Senate to call upon county governments to ensure that they promote tree planting and also become actively involved in the National Tree Planting Week. Mr. Speaker, I think it was in the last year that we were given a holiday out of the blues. And in the Kenyan Yuma, particularly Kenyans who have lived for a long time in Nairobi, they decided to plant trees in all kinds of holes. And we are waiting to see, perhaps after 9 months, whether those trees have germinated and whether they have grown. And so, Mr. Speaker, if you give Kenyans a public holiday without clearly telling them what they're supposed to do and without a clear build-up on the activities of that day, Kenyans will misuse it. They will take advantage of the day for shere and take advantage of the day to do other things that do not promote that objective. That particular event, that National Tree Planting Day, Mr. Speaker, we saw the national government, particularly the members of the national executive, were the ones flying in choppers going around the country, releasing carbon into the atmosphere, further causing serious damage to our climate, going to hills and forests. And it was a one-day affair. So, Speaker, we are not very sure whether those trees were taken care of. I wish that Senator Ledamo Lekina was in this house, because I do recall when there was a fight for the Mau forest, he had a very innovative approach where he went and approached friends from South Africa who gave him a small aircraft and gave him seed balls. And I do recall him flying all over the Mau and dropping seed balls. Mr. Speaker, this issue of reforestation, we should not think about it through the prism of the traditional digging a hole and planting a tree. Even seed balls have been found to be quite effective. And I want to encourage county governments to adopt that approach. And it is very easy to use youth groups, to use women groups, to use organized groups, to give them those seed balls, let them scatter them, let them spread them, so that when the rains start falling, like it did today in Nairobi, then those seed balls can germinate. But beyond the seed balls, I think it's also a bright idea, as Senator Abdul has proposed, that we need to establish tree nurseries in each county. These tree nurseries, I hope that we are not going to have this situation that we have started seeing in a few counties. I've seen a program called Climate Works in Tano. And Mr. Speaker, this is a program with good intentions, but if it's not scrutinized, if it's not oversighted, then governors are just going to be organizing militias with the next election in mind. If you're going to do legitimate climate works in our county governments, let's ensure that they go out of the clutches and out of the control of governors, because they're going to just get their goons and their usual cheering squad into those programs. And those people will be there not for the love of the environment, but just to get a small income. I do recall in one of the other counties that we looked at in the Public Accounts Committee, I think it was Tharaka Nithi County. Mr. Speaker, in that county, the governor had set up small units of youth in every ward, and the number was quite high. Even though they were not involved in climate or tree planting, they were involved in maintenance of roads, and that triggered some concern that some of these things we establish purportedly to benefit the youth can be easily abused. The tree nurseries in counties, I hope that we can come up with a model where we can empower self-help groups, community-based organizations. These people who are currently parading plants and seedlings along the roadside, let the county governments not throw them out of business for the county government to do a giga nursery, the way they're doing giga kitchens for school feeding. I hope this is not going to lead to giga tree nurseries controlled by county governments, consuming public resources, and that is overpriced and overvalued. Let's hope that this is going to spread out. I already can see how this will work in my county of Homa Bay. Senator Beatrice Ogola knows that along the lake, on the shores of Lake Victoria, it's a very fertile zone because there's a silt that comes upstream and goes into the lake. So it's extremely fertile. A lot of young people, for lack of employment, have now resorted to go to the shores of the lake, those silted areas. Some areas are fairly swampy, and they're growing vegetables. They're doing tomatoes. They're doing sukuma wiki and cabbages. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you they're doing extremely well. In my village, the boys and girls who are doing farming next to the lake are doing better than those who are operating border borders on the tarmac. And these are already existing groups, which if we can give them an incentive that if they can set up tree nurseries, there'll be an off-take program by the county government. I believe this can broaden their revenue sources and put more money in the pockets of our youth in the counties. Mr. Speaker, I further support the proposal that there would be tax and fiscal incentives to boost investments in forest land use and utilization. If someone does good for the environment, let them get some benefit. Let them get something in return for doing good. I think this would be the best justification for fiscal incentives because we are making investments that are going to last beyond generations. And you see, Mr. Speaker, many a times when we are talking about our finance bills and our fiscal policies, it is always about the increase in tax. The conversation on reliefs is not usually amplified. And I do hope that CS Mbadi, if he was listening, this would be a very genius insertion into his fiscal plan and finance bill that he would be bringing to Parliament, that instead of starting his speech by saying that we are increasing VAT, or we are increasing housing levy, or we are increasing this social health, that he would start his conversation by saying that we are giving an incentive to people who plant trees. We are giving incentives to corporates who, as part of their corporate social responsibility, they have decided that they're going to reforest and ensure that our country's tree cover and forest cover is maintained and is optimized. Because, Mr. Speaker, corporates sometimes engage in CSR that might not have very consequential long-term effects. I know a number of corporates have gone into the sports arena because it's in sports that there is visibility. In fact, I would have gone ahead and proposed that out of the resources we get from betting and gambling companies, a certain percentage should be ring-fenced and directed towards climate adaptation and climate mitigation activities. Because, Mr. Speaker, that industry is extremely liquid, not because it is exploitative, but because I think this country, our young people have a gambling culture as a result of lack of opportunities. And I believe that we could put a sin tax. We could put a sin tax on gambling. We could put a sin tax, as we have done on tobacco. We could put a sin tax on alcohol, but direct it not just to the overall budget support that we have done, but put a percentage to go to climate change activities. Mr. Speaker, the National Tree Planting Week, if it is well coordinated and organized, I believe that all the primary schools and secondary schools and universities in this country, if they knew 3 months in advance, or if they knew if it was put in the annual calendar of the nation, that on a certain day we are going to plant trees, it will be much more effective than a date being gazetted in an ambush fashion as it was done in the last year. Mr. Speaker, when the Leader of Majority was making comments on this bill yesterday, he challenged the Climate Change Caucus, which I have the privilege to lead, to do much more in terms of climate action. Mr. Speaker, I do agree with the Leader of Majority that a lot of conversations around climate have existed in boardrooms, have existed in conferences. We have had conferences of parties. Right now, we are, I think, at COP28 going to COP29. And yet, whenever we go there, it turns out to be a talking shop. We come back without making substantive progress. Last year, when we went to Baku in Azerbaijan, the African countries and the least developed countries wanted a new collective quantifiable goal on climate finance that would mobilize $1.3 trillion for climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. Mr. Speaker, it was quite a disappointment that out of that conference of parties, the developed countries were not able to achieve much. I believe that the commitments that were made did not exceed 300 billion out of more than 1 trillion that was required. It is further troubling that the United States of America has given notice of withdrawal from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, under which parties organize themselves under the Conference of Parties. Mr. Speaker, the rest of the world cannot afford to go to sleep simply because the United States of America has decided to be irresponsible. You do not stop taking care of your garden. You do not stop, fumigating your house simply because your neighbor is not fumigating theirs. And that seems to be the very irrational decision that the United States has made, because they argue that they should not be penalized for success. But that success has been at great expense to the rest of the countries. So, Speaker, I do believe that if democracy was to hold sway, that in the next 3-4 years, the residents of the US will see the folly of the decisions that they're making today, and that they will come back to the UNFCCC, and they'll become they'll come back to be parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I want also to put it on record that within the Climate Change Caucus, we have appreciated that we must go beyond the talk and do some action. In this session, Mr. Speaker, we will be initiating a program known as Parliamentarians for Climate Change. This is a program that has been financed by the Green Climate Fund through UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and it is being implemented by Climate Parliament, which is a global organization that brings together parliamentarians who are passionate about climate change. The theme of this engagement is to encourage establishment of green investment zones in each country. A green investment zone, think about it as the way we look at the EPZs, the way we look at industrial zones, the way we look at county aggregation parks. A green investment zone would be an area that is custom made with proper laws, proper regulations, proper infrastructure for people to come and put in investments in renewable energy. Now, you can imagine that today, if you wanted to put up a solar farm, and I have this experience, Mr. Speaker, we had a US investor who wanted to put up a 40 megawatt solar farm on the hills of Nyakwere. I think Senator Beatrice Ogola was a CEC member in Homa Bay at that time, and I believe she was involved in ensuring that the land was acquired and in bringing in the investor. And the investors were quite ready to put in millions of US dollars into this project, to put in 40 megawatts. But then the problem came up in offtake, because EPRA, the regulatory authority, and the rest of the entities, statutory bodies involved in uptake and transmission of electricity had a dim view of solar. They said solar is intermittent power and that it is not stable, and therefore they were not prioritizing it into the national grid. Mr. Speaker, advances in solar energy and technology have outstripped advances in any other sector. We see, courtesy of electric vehicles, the advances in storage of power, the advances in batteries, the advances in inverters, advances in solar panels, Mr. Speaker. This country needs to have a clear and robust renewable energy strategy that puts solar at the center. One country that has just recently suffered the vagaries of climate change, I think that must be Zambia. Their energy mix is heavily reliant on hydro. And then there was the El Nino and La Nina that hit Southern Africa recently. There was a devastating drought in Southern Africa. The rivers dried. And so the hydropower stations could not generate electricity. That country was engulfed in darkness. In Kenya today, we are generating our electricity from renewable sources like the geothermal towards Naivasha. We also have wind in Turkana, but we still have about 20 to 30% reliance on hydro. And if indeed the forecast that we are being given are true, that we are going into a season of drought, then you can clearly tell if we switch off 20% of our power sources, there would be a huge impact on the economy. So this Parliamentarians for Climate Change initiative on green investment zones aims at encouraging government to establish dedicated zones for investors to put up serious investments in renewable energy. It could be green hydrogen, it could be solar, it could be wind, it could be any other form of renewable energy. Where parliamentarians come in is in ensuring that there's proper legislation, proper regulation, proper fiscal incentives, because this is the province of parliament. A study that was conducted in India on the factors that affected implementation and adoption of renewable energy put regulation and legislation among the top 3 factors. The other one was offtake, because once you have invested, you find regulatory bodies that are not willing to take it up. Mr. Speaker, all these initiatives around green investment, we are doing them because we have cut down our forests, we have cut down our trees, and we have gotten to a point where we are not able to absorb the carbon that comes out of industrial activity. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the issue of carbon credits has always come up. When we plant a lot of trees, it is possible for us to go to the market and claim carbon credits and get an additional source of income. However, Mr. Speaker, under the Paris Agreement, there is an Article 6 that talks about internationally transferred mitigation outcomes. There are countries that are taking advantage of that article to come to Africa, to buy forests, to take up parks, and we have seen it, Mr. Speaker. There's a company from the United Arab Emirates that so far has signed up deals in Africa to take up African forests, and they say the size equivalent to the entire United Kingdom, so that they can continue mining fossil fuels, drilling oil in the Arabian Peninsula, and then they net off with the oxygen that is emitted from African forests. Mr. Speaker, it's a matter that those of us who go for the Conference of Parties need to talk about robustly, because you cannot continue polluting and then you come to Africa and purport that you have bought or you own a forest and say that the carbon capture by that forest is equivalent to the emissions you're making. It is conmanship at international level. And this country must be wary. And I do hope that if we are going to hold the second Africa Climate Summit, which I'm being told might be held in Africa, that these are some of the conversations that will be there, and that this parliament will be robustly involved in the conversations at the Africa Climate Summit. And Mr. Speaker, it has been good when the chair of that committee at the Africa Union is the President of the Republic of Kenya. We hope that the numbers and figures we'll be taking to the AU, to the Africa Climate Summit, will be numbers that will be verifiable. Because if you say we have planted 1 billion trees, it would be a great folly if Kenyans on social media then unpack it and realize that it was all a pack of lies. Mr. Speaker, I'll finalize by taking on the call that many senators have given, that all of us must walk the talk. We are in talks with the Kenya National Highways Authority for the next rainy season in April to go to Gembe Hills. Gembe Hills is a gazetted forest next to my home village. And in the last National Tree Planting Day, CS Murkomen was there. He led a tree planting exercise, and he challenged Kenya to donate hundreds of thousands of seedlings. And in this rainy season in April, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure you and assure the House that I will join Kenya and other players, and I will also mobilize resources through the Kajwang Foundation, so that the rainy season, we go out to the forest, we go and do what Senator Abdul is calling on the government to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Now, honorable senators, that brings us to the end of our debate on this particular bill. And I now call upon the mover of the motion, Senator Haji, to reply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me take this opportunity first to thank all the senators that have contributed, and to appreciate them for the many ideas and suggestions that they have given to the bill. Mr. Speaker, when I came up with this bill, it was an attempt to correct something that was already missing in the environment law by introducing vegetation of arid and semi-arid areas. But in no way did this bill intend to alienate any of the other regions. The other regions had already been covered in the existing bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, as senators, we went to Mandera, and I think I was privileged to have attended Senator Sifuna, Senator Onyonka, Senator Eddy, and the other senators to Mandera County. And we actually saw it for ourselves, that vegetating an arid or semi-arid area is something that is very much doable. Mandera has been able to do it. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker, sir, in Mandera, temperatures usually soar up to the heights of 40 degrees centigrade. And when the wind blows, it feels like you're in a microwave. Mr. Speaker, Senator Roba, who was governor at that time, initiated a program to vegetate Mandera. And the trees have now, 10 years later, grown, and they act as a buffer to the hot winds, ensuring that the people of Mandera do not suffer from heat wave. Mr. Speaker, sir, the senators that have contributed have enriched this bill, and I would like to appreciate each and every one of them, from Senator Cherargei, Olekina, Cheriot, Wambua, Esi, Senator Manzo, Senator Mundigi, Dulo, Miraj, Veronica, Wamatinga, Kisang, Senator Abbas, Senator Sigei, yourself, Mr. Speaker, Senator Kamar, Senator Mogeni, Senator Onyonka, Senator Joyce Korir, Senator Kajwang, Senator Sifuna, Senator Mungatana, Senator Beatrice, and Senator Mariam. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, sir, to work with every one of the senators to ensure that we introduce the clauses that they have proposed. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I move to reply, I would just like to highlight some of the contributions that have been made by my colleague senators. Senator Cherargei, Senator Cherargei intends to introduce a clause to expand the vegetation cover of the Kenyan marshland to 30%. He also mentioned that under the KFS, that he proposes that instead of just planting 2 trees for every 1 cut down, adapt the trees to ensure they reach maturity. And most of the senators, Mr. Speaker, sir, have, and I think that was a typo in the bill or an oversight. If you cut 1 tree, you plant 1 tree. I don't think that is the way we should go, Mr. Speaker, sir. It's actually, if you cut 1 tree, you should plant more than 3 trees, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, such as Senator Cheriot also requested that logging regulations should require that only mature trees are harvested, which I thought was a very good idea. Senator Cherargei also suggested that we utilize the pre-zone land for agroforestry, allowing inmates to plant and adapt and maintain the trees. Senator Cherargei also suggested that we introduce community service orders where offenders are assigned to tree planting and maintaining as a project, which I also thought was a good idea. Mr. Speaker, Senator Olekina proposed that whenever a tree is felled, it must be replaced in a location. He actually opposed the idea that it should be replaced in a location designated by Kenya Forest Services. The senator objects to this requirement, arguing that introduces unnecessary bureaucracy. And I think yourself, Mr. Speaker, sir, had also mentioned that. He proposes an alternative approach where an individual who cuts down a tree should immediately plant 2 to 3 trees in the same location rather than having to wait for KFS to designate an area. Senator Olekina also proposed that we actually introduce a clause to take care of the Madenge plant, which is a very destructive plant in most of the arid and semi-arid areas. There was also several propositions to the week for planting trees. I think Senator Professor Kamar, Senator Olekina, and several other senators suggested that 1 week is not even enough. We should have a tree planting and tree growing week month. So I think that is something we'll have to discuss and see if we should include in this bill. There was also the popular suggestion that every school, that we should actually introduce a curriculum in our schools where we teach our children so that we can inculcate in their culture, the culture of growing and planting and growing trees. And I think that was also a good idea. Senator Cheriot proposed that we consider integrating tree planting practices in special occasions, such as when heads of state and dignitaries visit Kenya. Senator Wambua wanted us to find out a way to put in the bill that it should include provisions, either expressly or implicitly, that ensures leaders take a leading role in environmental conservation efforts. Senator Essie wanted to be a bit, she was requesting that we have a way to track trees, whether if they're still standing or they've been cut down. So I think that is also something we'll have. You know, Senator Essie is a youth, so she's probably thinking in the future, how we should be more futuristic in this bill. So that is something also we will consider. Senator Mundigi was interested in medicinal value of trees and how we can commercialize that in our counties. Senator Fatuma Dulo on the same matter of medicinal trees, she wanted to consider how we can have licensing for trees for medicinal purposes, so that there is a need to increase investment in research. And she also suggested that there's a need to increase investment and research and issuance of licenses to qualified individuals and institutions. Senator Miraj was interested on how this initiative or how this bill how we can introduce a clause where the youth can benefit from any initiative of planting and growing trees. Senator Veronica took the opportunity to challenge KRA to come up with initiatives to reward companies and private sector when they take up initiatives of planting trees. The comments are many. Mr. Speaker, sir, your proposal was actually one of the most interesting, where we should include the word grow in the bill instead of just having planting trees. And I think that is important because in most of the areas that we were targeting with this bill, you cannot just grow trees. You cannot just plant trees. You have to grow and nurture them. So that is something we should actually include in the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, there was also the issue of nurseries. The bill had proposed a nursery in every county. There was a proposal that it should actually be in every sub-county, as Joyce Korir had suggested. Senator Professor Kamar also had a similar, she wanted a nursery in every school in every sub-county, which is the same thing. I think that's something we can consider and agree as part of the amendment. Senator Mogeni wanted us to strengthen the required meaningful public participation before any tree or trees are cut down, which I think is very important. We should actually include that in the bill. Senator Mungatana actually raised a very important matter about the Uhuru Gardens. And I think that is also something we should actually take it up as senators. Uhuru Gardens was intended for the public, and by only going by the name of Uhuru Garden, it should actually be converted into a garden or a botanical garden in Nairobi, so that people can actually visit and be able to understand and be educated on the different species of trees, flowers, and other vegetations. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill, as I had mentioned earlier, was intended to bring the arid and semi-arid areas into the fold of planting trees. Mr. Speaker, sir, our areas, the arid and semi-arid areas, it is very difficult to plant trees. And that is why this bill was introducing indigenous trees that can actually withstand the harsh climate in our areas. Mr. Speaker, sir, when we introduce bills in this Senate or in Parliament, it is intended to make sure that it covers all the regions and all the and benefits all the people of the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, laws are supposed to govern each one of us equally. And I was a bit disheartened, Mr. Speaker, sir, and actually heartbroken by comments by certain leaders in our country who decided to criticize the initiative by the president to remove the extra vetting of IDs for the people of northern Kenya and border counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, it was very reckless for individual like Governor Natembeya of Trans Nzoia to prejudice and criticize a whole community in the region and labeling them as terrorists. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a leader and as an elected leader, he should know that any injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Mr. Speaker, when a law is introduced to discriminate any Kenyan, it is a law that should not be in place, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that is one thing you should understand. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to take this opportunity now. I beg to reply to the bill, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 66.3, I request that the putting of the question be deferred to a later date. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator Haji. And as requested, putting of the question in this particular bill is deferred to the next session of this House. Now we will call the next order.
Order number 12, the County Civic Education Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2024, second reading, resumption of debate.
Honorable members, this is a resumption of the debate that was interrupted yesterday, the 12th February 2025, in the afternoon sitting. And by the time the House rose, the Honorable Senator Julius Mulgore had a balance of 19 minutes, and he's not in the House. That particular 19-minute, therefore, is definitely going to be forfeited in his absence, and I will proceed to call upon the senators who are present to continue contributing. Senator Samson Cherargei, you go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, from the onset, I want to congratulate Senator Esther Okenyuri in a now formative and in the beginning of this leadership role and legislative agenda. Senator Esther Okenyuri continues to distinguish herself as one of the youngest brilliant senators of our generation, which I'm proud to strongly associate with her. And I'm happy that since she joined Senate, and coincidentally, the God of Senator Esther Okenyuri must be very near where she comes from, because initially it was the Senator Soipan Tuya, who is now the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Defense. She joined us midway, but I'm impressed she has learned the ropes very quickly. And her commitment and zeal and passion in how she does her legislative agenda is quite impressive. And I'm happy, you know, when you are nominated, you don't have an obligation. Her and Senator Ogola, as one of the committed nominated members, that every time we are in the House, they are always there from the beginning to the last. What I'm impressed about Senator Okenyuri is I normally see her in the village interacting. And I want to appeal to the people of Kisii. I've never done this before. That if God favors Senator Esther Okenyuri, please, in the next 14th Parliament, she should join us as an elected member of Parliament to be part of the transformation of this country. I have seen her wearing even school uniform to appeal, even wearing church clothes, the ones and interacting. So, and I want to assure the people of Kisii that Senator Okenyuri, she's up to the task. We are proud as our generation that we want to have one of the finest. Mr. Speaker, just in closing, because I have 2 comments and then I have 4 for the bill, is, you know, Senator Esther Okenyuri continues to be an inspiration to the girl child. You know, women sometimes feel inadequate, they feel they cannot compete. But since this platform has come, Senator Okenyuri has distinguished herself. And I'm happy she has not seen herself through the lenses of gender. But I want to borrow the words of Senator Ogola when a matter came before the House at some times back, which was a motive, that I'm happy she's not seeing herself through the gender lenses. She's seeing herself as an equal member of this House. And we are proud of what she is doing. My sister, we are proud of you and I wish you well. I hope one day and one time you'll remember on 13, just before Valentine's of 2025, Mr. Speaker, I did make this prophecy. And Mr. Speaker, on a lighter note, some of us men tomorrow, we are told not to get close to the other agenda. So, because there is a flu that is affecting men, so we will not be available tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, but we'll available maybe in children's home to show love to the less fortunate and others, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, secondly and finally is on the bill. I am impressed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the reason Gen Z and what happened is sad, where this parliament was attacked. is because I was surprised in the last session, the third session, Mr. Speaker. There was a lot of misinformation on Finance Bill 2023. You know, because of lack of civic education and public participation. When you used to go to functions in Bomet, I go in Nandi, Senator Ogola goes to Homa Bay, Senator Okenyuri goes to Kisii. You sit in a public baraza and you hear what people are saying is not even in the finance bill. It is because of lack of civic education, Mr. Speaker. Public participation is a key component. I am happy, Mr. Speaker, that it is mandatory now to do civic education, Mr. Speaker. And I want to challenge you. I was talking about tolling of our roads, where the government want to toll major highways to raise 230 billion. The public participation is being done now. Many people will not attend, but when it is passed, they will start running around the country saying they were not being involved during public participation of tolling of our roads, Mr. Speaker. Even the finance bill of 2025, I want to encourage Kenyans to participate. I'm happy. And I rarely give accolades, Mr. Speaker, as you know me. But I was impressed by Senator CPA, Cabinet Secretary John Badi Ngongo, who went to Jivanji Gardens and tried to demystify what finance bill is, what is in there, so that we go ahead with the facts before the fake news, which Donald Trump calls fake news, continue to reign among, Mr. Speaker. You know, this country, we thrive in fake news. And I'm happy the CS in charge of Treasury is taking the lead. I want to challenge members as we do budget policy statements. I want to challenge members of public and members of National Assembly Finance and Budget. As they go around the country, they should at least ensure they go through 100, 290 constituencies for this public participation. Even other bills, Mr. Speaker. So the reason even Finance Bill 2023 led to uproar is because there was a lot of misinformation. People are saying you want to tax the debt, you want to tax land. But when you read a finance bill, Mr. Speaker, you agree with me and what is happening is that you do. And let us use the medium, Mr. Speaker. And I saw today you were in Citizen, the State of the Nation. And you are also doing civic education because you are telling Kenyans the facts so that people do not thrive on misinformation. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that public officials will be taken through mandatory, Mr. Speaker. In clause number 5, it says public officials, including elected who are us and appointed officials at national, shall undergo mandatory civic education. Mr. Speaker, can you believe, for example, in Nandi today, if you go to Nandi County Assembly and ask for the budget, no one will give it to you. Not knowing that under Article 34 and 35, there is right to information and there is right to media freedom. You go to the governor's office, Nandi, we have demanded the budget, we have demanded annual development plans, county integrated development plan, the status of projects, but they will never give you. Yet it is a public document. Yet it is a right of every Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, even I've seen, Mr. Speaker, whenever civic education is done in Homa Bay or Nandi or Bomet, when they are doing public participation and public participation for Finance Act or Finance Bill of County Assembly, they will call a few characters, give them soda and mukate and say they have done public participation. And they say, sign your name and ID number and phone number. Then they take it back. Yet civic education has not been done. What is the content that is inside that bill that we are proposing, Mr. Speaker? So I'm happy that all officials, we should know that public participation precedes civic education. Let us as leaders, Mr. Speaker, even I know politics is sweet. You go to a funeral, you go to a public function. Let us use even 1 or 2 minutes to engage our people and educate them on the roles that we should give, Mr. Speaker. Even on civic education, I know, Mr. Speaker, most of the NGOs have been funding this issue of civic education across many other areas, but I'm happy there will be a structure that will continue to engage them, Mr. Speaker. I want to challenge that there is a budget. You know, Mr. Speaker, civic education, and you know, Senator Ogola has been a CCM in former Rasanka's government, Colonel Rasanka. Cyprian Awiti, former governor, Cyprian Awiti. And she knows very well, she will tell you from my experience, that most of the civic education awareness were being financed by non-governmental organizations. There was no allocation of budget, and if it is there, it is for soda and mukate. But you find, and you know, Mr. Speaker, you know Donald Trump has suspended everything under USAID. So, you know, most of the NGOs used to finance civic education awareness. But I'm happy in clause number 9, county government shall ensure that there is allocation of budget for civic education. And we should brace ourselves. The USAID now is gone. Mr. Speaker, but you know, I want to thank Donald Trump. And I want to thank the head of Doge, that is Elon Musk, Mr. Speaker, although he has been fighting reappropriation of land in South Africa to try and emasculate the South African government, Mr. Speaker. But I want to agree that USAID funds must be audited. Mr. Speaker, can you believe few months before Donald Trump won an election, the USAID in Kenya were purchasing 5 cars for 100 million, the latest brand of Toyota Prado, Mr. Speaker. You go to Wilsonia, these consultants of USAID fly in the morning to Kakuma and come back in the evening. They live in posh estates like Runda, Karen, where you are paying 400, 300,000 per rent. It means out of 184 billion that USAID has sent to Kenya to support Kenyans, only 10% was achieving to intended purposes. Therefore, we want to agree with the US government led by Donald Trump that the USAID must be taken to the intended purpose. And we agree with them that they must be audited, because you find consultants will sit in hotels, will sit in Java and other hotels with a laptop, and they are being paid in terms of dollars, Mr. Speaker. Yet the real intention of money could not get. And therefore, most of this civic education awareness was being financed by non-governmental organization, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that even we should have a structure of engaging. Whenever public participation is done in Longisa, let us list, let us get the name, let us have a structure of engagement. I know County Governments Act, I think Section 81 on public participation as a critical component. And I'm happy Senator Kenyuri is proposing something that has been given, she's giving life to Article 10 on principles of good governance and national values, Mr. Speaker. One of them is public participation, which is anchored in civic education and awareness in our republic, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this bill, I expected all senators to be here. The reason we are fighting on the ground is because the county governments who are corrupt will never like to read the true reflection of what is happening. And that is why, as a senator, whenever you go and tell the people, for example, in Nandi, in the last financial year, I made sure around 10 billion was taken to Nandi County. People will be shocked because what they are seeing on the ground is not reflective on the equitable shareable revenue and conditional grants and on-source revenue that was allocated to counties, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I'm happy there is going to be a structure, Mr. Speaker, and it is very important. Even another aspect that is clause number 17 is grounds for registration, Mr. Speaker, which is very critical. And I'm happy, I remember there was a crackdown of NGOs. And at that time, those NGOs were being cracked down, Mr. Speaker, because they were doing something that was not intended. Also, as we allow civic education to be funded by NGOs, we don't want civic education to be done to incite the public against government or incite the public against their own country. We are aware. And you remember in 2017, because some of us were serving in this house, some of the organizations by the NGOs, some of them were being accused allegedly of financing terrorism in the country. Some of them are being accused funding destabilization. Mr. Speaker, you remember even in the GNC revolution, there were allegations that George Soros Foundation, Mr. Speaker, was part and parcel that were financing the revolution in the guise of civic education and awareness. I'm happy there is a legal framework to control the type of NGOs that come to the country. We are not objecting, Mr. Speaker, and let me go on record crystal clear. We are not objecting that the NGOs should not be part and parcel of process of civic awareness. But what we are saying, we must know who they are. What is their intention? What is their purpose? What is their objects? We don't want NGOs, Mr. Speaker, that will be used to destabilize governments in Africa. And when you look at across the world, it is only the NGOs that bring civic awareness on political and civil issues that are heavily financed in Africa. And we saw the sad reality of the GNC revolution, that in as much the young people had the right intention to try and fix problems that we are facing, somebody somewhere through the NGOs hijacked the process, Mr. Speaker, until they wanted to destabilize the country. Therefore, the vetting, and I want to challenge the National Intelligence Service, our security apparatus. They must vet the NGOs that do civic awareness, and Mr. Speaker. And the only way we can fix them, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that they are cataloged, they are known what they are doing, Mr. Speaker. The final part is on the issue of false statements. I agree. Mr. Speaker, fake news must be flagged. I remember, Mr. Speaker, social media must also, and I'm happy that all social media must have physical offices in Nairobi or in Kenya. Because when you open Facebook, Mr. Speaker, it has so misleading information. You open X or Twitter, you open TikTok, you open whichever social media, Instagram and others, you rarely and hardly see, Mr. Speaker. Even, Mr. Speaker, I had the IT minister. I'm lucky I survived. Mr. Speaker, I'm still a member of ICT with my sisters in Togola. Can you believe it is only in Kenya that when you open your social media, you will get pornography being displayed in our social media, Mr. Speaker. But when you go to countries like Saudi Arabia, countries in Middle East like Emirates, United Arab Emirates, they have proper regulation and discipline in terms of all these social media accounts. It is because we have given too much freedom that does not have discipline, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, we challenge in this issue of false statements, and I'm happy, I want to recommend Senator Okenyuri, this offense of false statement and issue of calling people and telling them lies, the way some NGOs are doing in this country. I want to propose that it should be 5 million for anybody who spreads false statement, because, Mr. Speaker, imagine if an NGO does civic awareness in Kablong, and they tell them to overthrow, for example, hypothetically overthrow the government. Is it not expensive, the side effect, than the punishment? So I want to agree that all NGOs and anybody who does civic awareness on false statement, we must ensure that they are punitive of 5 million Kenyan shillings, or alternative, they should be in jail for 10 years. Because the cost of losing a country and a society, ask Somalia. Mr. Speaker, I was with some senior in this region. I was on the sidelines of the issues of DRC, M23 crisis, and what have you. And I sat with the people. Some friends from Somalia were telling DRC, don't go to our route, because it is expensive to come back from where Somalia is. And it has destabilized the north of Africa, Mr. Speaker. Even in Rwanda now and DRC, we don't want to go them to that direction. And we hope on Saturday, I don't know, Senator Ogola has not given me the exact date when elections of AU will be done. I think on Saturday immediately after Valentine, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I'm trying to get a private jet to that destination, Mr. Speaker. I want to assure the naysayers, Mr. Speaker, that Raila Amolo Odinga will be elected the chairperson of African Union Community. And I want to ask Baba Raila Odinga, his first assignment must bring stability in DRC crisis we must resolve. We want an Africa that is peaceful, Mr. Speaker. We want, as Raila takes over as AUC chairman, to spearhead the issue of resolving crisis in DRC, Mr. Speaker, so that as a continent, we become more stable. And Mr. Speaker, finally, as I conclude, I don't know what is wrong with some Kenyans. There are many people who are praying for Raila to fail. We are no longer patriotic, Mr. Speaker. Go to Tanzania. You saw even when Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan and my brother, my very close friend, Ambassador Balozi Njimbi, who is the presumptive deputy president of Tanzania, Mr. Speaker, and you should know that he is my close friend, the incoming deputy president of Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan. Those people are very patriotic, Mr. Speaker. You remember when they were doing their national delegates of CCM in Dodoma, all musicians from Diamond, Shusho, Sijui Zuju, and the rest showed up to show support because of patriotism of their country. But when you come to Kenya, some people are praying, and I'm told others have gone to the mountains. Others are consulting witch doctors in Indian Ocean for Raila to fail. Tunasema washindwe katika jina la Yesu. Baba must strive, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I congratulate Senator Okenyuri and wish him well. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei, as you're closing, you went overboard in the language use, contrary to the standing orders. place yourself in order next time. And the comments that you made as regards Senator Beatrice Ogola and Senator Esi Kinyuri is basically because of their dedication to work and their responsibility as responsible members of this house. And I commend you for that, because it can only be better when members are committed to their work. And I commend you for commenting the honorable mover of this particular bill. I will allow Senator Ogola, Beatrice Akinyi, to also add her voice to the bill.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to start by congratulating Senator Okenyuri, just as my senior brother, Senator Cheregai, has indicated that Senator is a young, enterprising legislator who is committed to her work, not only in the House, but even back in her community. Senator Okenyuri has often invited me to go with her to Kisiland just to support the community. And I want to tell the people of Kisi that with Senator Okenyuri, you'll never get it wrong. However, Honorable Speaker, following from where Senator Cheregai has left, I wanted to assure Senator Cheregai that you don't need to be worried about people who pray negatively. Prayers are for good. So sometimes some wisdom has indicated that, Honorable Speaker, when you point somebody with one finger, little do you know that the rest of the fingers are pointing to yourself. But I would also want to say that there is an Arabian proverb, Honorable Speaker, that it says that unlike the stomach, the brain never alerts you when it is empty. And so, Honorable Speaker, for Kenyans or whoever they are who are negative to what is happening in the whole of Africa, we can only forgive them. But I want to assure you, they will never stop the will of the Lord. Honorable Speaker, on the same note, I want to state that to the heads of state that will be casting their votes on Saturday to elect the Right Honorable Prime Minister Engineer Raila Amolo Odinga, be sure and confident that you'll be getting the best of the best, that you'll be electing a patriot, that when you cut Raila's blood, all you find is love for Africa. Look at his manifesto. His passion for security in Africa, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Beatrice,
His passion to
I
see
want
that
to direct
Africans,
that you confine your contribution to the bill that is before the House. You are actually going outside the relevant.
I'm guided, Honorable Speaker. And as I remain guided and pray that I remain guided, Honorable Speaker, I would like to wish Baba well on Saturday. And on behalf of everybody else in this republic, we are sure His Excellency, the President, will do his best. Honorable Speaker, now let me come to this outstanding bill on civic education. Honorable Speaker, education is a lifelong activity that we all learn throughout